The Zone Coverage Podcast Network.
They may be drinkers, Robin, but they're also human beings.
Hell yeah, let's get Stinko.
From the shadow of XL Energy Center, welcome to the Giles and the Goalie podcast. I am your host, Giles Farrell. Across the table from me, as always, is Ben Remington.
Hello.
Ben, are you enjoying the lovely spring weather we're having? Also enjoying it free of Minnesota Wild hockey.
Honestly, it's a little hot for me. I do not like this weather. I want it to be somewhere around the 55-degree mark. I'm what you would call a sweater. So
like the weekend we were in Vegas is like your optimal weather.
Yeah,
Yes,
that was perfect.
That was great.
Yeah, that was absolutely beautiful.
No, it has been quite lovely out. The snow has melted away faster than, I don't know.
You know what melted it away? It was all the hot takes. All the
There would
hot
never
air.
be any snow.
That's true. If hot takes melted snow, Minnesota would look like Kansas or no, not University. Minnesota would look like Arizona.
If hot takes melted snow, Minnesota would be the Sahara Desert.
Yes, it would.
That's something you can take to the bank. Yeah, this is the most unorganized open that I've done probably in the last two shows.
In the last two shows, yes.
Yeah, I'd say I ever have an organized
we
open.
can't say, yeah. It's
No, we're just here enjoying some drinks, playoff hockey. It's good. Hope you are enjoying the Stanley Cup playoffs as we are. I must say it is just a freeing feeling to just watch, not have a care in the world.
we are enjoying 2-for-1s at Unnamed Bar and Grill in St. Paul. So
Yeah,
this is a well lubricated Giles and the Goalie episode.
it got really bright in here when the owner of said bar and grill came into the bar.
Oh yeah, there
But
he
that
is.
probably had more to do with the fact he's wearing a bright yellow
He was wearing a
shirt.
very bright yellow shirt.
I thought he was walking over to us to tell us to cease and desist.
We need to rack a couple of those up this season. We only got one.
Get a few more in.
Yeah.
No, we're at one this year. One ever, but
I really doubt. Tom just doesn't seem like that.
no.
He doesn't care. It seems like he would have to care first.
For all the times we've been here for this,
Yeah.
I think he's noticed. So
It'd be way funnier if he walked up and knew you by name. He's like, Giles, are you supposed to be recording today?
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah.
Probably come over and thank me because I
Right.
haven't been here in a while. Now I've been here twice in the last week.
Right.
So
Racking up the miles.
yeah, I need more miles. All right, that's enough filler open for this show.
Sure.
But to start, we're going to kind of get into some, basically the newsy things of the last week, kind of quick hit on, and then we're going to kind of dive into the couple of segments we've actually planned out. So to begin, just running through news from the last week, kind of the bigger news was Minnesota Wild named Chris O'Hearn, Director of Hockey Operations. He replaces Shep Harder, who was let go previously the week before from that position. And his responsibilities will be, things like contract management, managing the salary cap, the collective bargaining agreement guru, essentially. That's kind of what you expect from Chris O'Hearn. So just to kind of give you an outline of that, but you see Paul Finn bringing his own guy over, Shep Harder, who had been here for quite a long time. So there was some change there. I don't know if you have any blazing Chris O'Hearn takes. Previously, of the Arizona Coyotes and the Calgary Flames. I was a scout for Calgary this past season, and then before that, he spent 11 years as the assistant general manager of the Arizona/Phoenix Kachina Coyotes.
I'm sure he got a ton of work managing a very tight salary cap in Arizona. Pause for effect.
Yeah, he totally had free reign to run up the cap there.
All those acquisitions of Pavel Datsyuk and Chris Pronger that they made.
The salary cap legends.
No, I don't have any. I mean, yeah, like you said, it's Fenton bringing in his own guys. We didn't really talk about this last week when Burnett, Harder, and A.C. Thomas were fired, but it's certainly not going to affect anybody, or not everybody, I should say. But the firing of A.C. Thomas was just like...
Yeah, that was the one that really jumped off the page at me. And
yeah, me too.
Nobody else thought that.
Same here, and it baffled me that nobody cared that they literally fired the godfather of War on Ice, which was such an unbelievable, groundbreaking website, and hockey analytics, and the fact they kept around his cohort.
Yeah, Alex Mandryki.
Yes, Alex, that's right.
I believe I read she had another year left on her contract, so that might have more to do with it. A.C. Thomas's contract was up.
And they just chose not to resign him, obviously, so... Yeah, or maybe he just chose to leave. I mean, we don't really know how those things go down. That's kind of stuff that...
His last straw was the Victor Rask trade.
Well, and that's the point that I wanted to make, is like, you hire guys like him to keep you from making moves like that. You know what I mean? And like, so it's like, you get rid of a guy that...
But he didn't, though.
Well, but right, that's what I mean. You weren't using him anyway, obviously. So, I guess on one hand, yeah, you get rid of him because you weren't using him anyway. On the other hand, why weren't you using him? The guy's obviously brilliant.
This is more of my concern. I don't think I quite articulated it in my tweet when it was revealed that Thomas was not coming back, was as a general manager of a professional sports league team, you want to have as much information as possible to make the correct decisions. And I get the sense that Paul Fenton isn't big into analytics. He is very old school type of guy.
Yeah.
As also I will reference with kind of the hush-hush to any injuries, which he basically got down on his knees and pleaded to the media, please don't disclose any injuries to protect my players.
That's ridiculous.
And I just don't get why this day and age you would want to limit yourself from the information you can have as a general manager. I'm not saying like you have to solely base your decision on analytics.
No.
But if you're cutting yourself off from that information, you're doing a disservice to yourself. And basically I wonder, like, you don't renew the contract of Thomas, and then say Alex Mandryki goes next summer, and now you have no analytics department anymore. Like, that's where I kind of feel this is going, because he's not in essence just like firing him. He's just not renewing the contract. So if he doesn't see analytics at any value, then what's the point? Like, somebody is going to come along and just scoop them up again.
Oh, God, yeah.
And I'm not saying Chuck Fletcher totally lived by them, but at least he found them to be useful and had value.
Right.
So that's more of what I was concerned about with letting him go, was Paul Fenton doesn't necessarily believe that analytics. If I remember right, in his introductory press conference, he kind of poo-pooed the question of I haven't been able to find it. Nobody really tweeted that out, but I have to go back and find the actual video of it. But he really just kind of shot down the question. He danced around the answer. So that kind of adds to my belief that he's not necessarily big on the analytics side of it, which neither you or I don't live by it. But we also see the value in having information.
We also actually, pay attention to it and don't act like it's some kind of hocus pocus that doesn't mean anything either. And then I think that's his answer at the press conference was kind of playing the middle ground, where it was like, analytics are nice, but like I still rely on scouting. And so he did kind of poo-poo it. He acted like he played the middle ground, but Well, clearly by every move that he's made and all the stuff that he's done. Oh, God, Mark Davis.
Davis has the worst haircut.
How do you have a haircut like that when you have that much money? But anyway, like, I don't understand how you make moves like Nino for Rask if you have any semblance of an analytics department at all. If you have any internet access whatsoever and can, go to Corsica or Evolving Wild or...
Corsica doesn't exist anymore.
Well, I know. Well, it did back then, but Evolving Hockey or, any one of those sites, Natural Stat Trick, anything. You don't need an analytics department. You need a goddamn iPhone. Like, that can tell you that was going to be a bad trade. And obviously, those steps weren't taken, so...
Other news from the last week, the Minnesota Wild renew their lease at XL Energy Center through the year 2035. Previously had gone through 2025, but they effectively added 10 years onto that. Wild also managing River Center and Roy Wilkins Auditorium. I don't know, I guess I'm not shocked, basically, but given how well XL Energy Center has aged, that really should say, let's tack on more to this lease. So essentially, what this guarantees for you out there is that the Minnesota Wild will outlast the Minnesota North Stars in terms of age before they move away to some southern state.
That's a great point that I don't think anybody's thought of yet. Also, it is interesting, too, that, they extended to 35, which at that time would make that a 35-year-old building, right? Opened in 2000. And the fact that nobody is concerned about that at all. It just really speaks to how awesome the XL is. And the fact they have done little things here and there to where it hasn't aged a day. I mean, that arena is still as great as it was opening day. And, they've made some upgrades, but they haven't gone nuts either. To where it's really remained the same arena. Here we are 19 years later where it's remained the same arena. And that's really something in the world of sports where a 35-year-old arena and any other, almost any other situation. I mean, remember all the complaints about Metrodome? That being, at the time, those were made, was a 30-year-old arena. This was in, 2012 where they're talking about, we got to get rid of this 28-year-old arena or stadium, bringing up how decrepit it is and how poorly that place aged.
To be fair, the Metrodome was made in an era when everyone was looking for really cookie-cutter ways to make stadiums and arenas.
Yeah, that was weird.
So
what a weird time to be a sports
what an awful time to be alive for stadiums. And then really kind of came the 90s, and while the 90s may have brought fascinating jersey techniques, it also brought us more unique and stadiums that had character, essentially.
Yeah.
So
I think Camden Yards really kicked it off for baseball. Football, I don't know. Maybe there's stadiums for football that are timeless enough. I don't know, but I think Camden Yards really kicked that off for a lot of baseball teams. I mean, almost all baseball teams.
Yeah, pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
And that's a good point that they nobody's really talking about XL Energy Center needing to be replaced.
No.
Especially considering we're in a time when we're talking about baseball stadiums. A couple of teams have moved out of less than 20-year-old buildings that were built in the 90s.
Yep.
And you have another team like Arizona looking to get into a new ballpark. So it's kind of a weird time, but good for everyone to have the Wild's lease renewed through 2035. But also, while they're going to outlast the North Stars, they have not made any meaningful runs to the Stanley Cup final as of yet. So just waiting for that to happen at some point.
They're going to save that for 2 years before they move as well.
Yeah. So the other newsy thing of the week was Minnesota Wild signed forward Brandon Duhaime to a 2-year entry-level contract starting in 2019-20. Until then, he will be on an ATO with the Iowa Wild, who we'll come back to in a minute through their postseason. But this past year, the 21-year-old collected 34 points in 42 games with the Providence Friars. So he was a fourth-round pick of the 2016 entry draft and was named Most Improved Player during the 2017 development camp.
Yeah, and he was a guy that I had brought up. He had been on the radar once earlier this season with the prospect report that we do, the career watch that we do. And we saw him in the Frozen Four. His Providence Friars lost to UMD in the semifinal. And, I don't think that he is necessarily a guy that you're looking to come in and tear things up. I don't think he's that type of player. I think he's probably more of a bottom six kind of player than a top six kind of player. But I think there is also enough skill level there, and there's also, I think he's got decent size. So we'll see what they end up doing with him and how he ends up faring in Iowa next year, really. I mean, he could be a good depth piece for the Wild, which is kind of all you can really hope for out of a fourth-round pick, to be honest.
Yeah, that's all we really have on him. So the other thing, as I kind of alluded to, the Iowa Wild are in the postseason. They actually just played their first postseason game in team history as the Iowa Wild at home. 7-0 rout over Milwaukee in Game 1 at Wells Fargo Arena. But good for them. I think, as we said last week, Jordan Greenway, Luke Cunnin, and Ryan Donato all sent down. I got that right. All sent down from Minnesota after the end of the year, so they are playing. And then you have like Kyle Rouse, Sam Annis participating as well. So good for them. Yeah. No, it's definitely a good thing that they're getting some playoff experience, and that for those poor, long-suffering Iowa Wild fans, that they're actually getting a taste of the postseason. Those poor, long-suffering patrons of Des Moines. So the kind of main topic du jour we have for you is we're going to kind of go down the line. We've made a list of things we think could happen in the offseason for the Wild and kind of give you our odds on what we think will happen. And we'll kind of do some Vegas-type odds where we give you, like 2-1 or 10-1 or, whatever to 1. Basically what we think is kind of how it plays out. Right. And you can feel free to add us on twitter.com about it if you feel our odds are out there, but we're gonna kind of go with this. So the first one we have is Jason Zucker being traded. Mm-hmm. This is probably going to be the worst odds out of everyone, because I don't know. I feel like it's the worst or the best, right? But I don't know. What do you think? I know. I had it at 3-1. Okay, and that might even be a little bit light. That's generous. Yeah, because I think that it feels like it could be a guarantee. First of all, you have to work on the assumption that it might not happen when you make odds like this. You can never guarantee anything's happen. That's why you make odds. But I think that the uproar that they saw and the fact that the return on the trade that he was supposed to get was so awful that I feel like that might maybe scare off Fenton from dealing him this summer. And Zucker's also pleading his case too. And I think that's something that's very real. And the trade would have to get done before July 1st, which is also something that can be difficult as well. So, I put it at 3-1. I certainly would understand if somebody wants to give even worse odds than that. What do you think? Are you worse than that? Yep. Are you going 1-1? I have a 3, but I'm at 3-2 for. Okay, that's fair. For that to happen, sure. I and we talked about this previously, where Paul Fenton was hell-bent on taking a blowtorch to Chuck Fletcher's core. And boy, did he do that. And he came a stone's throw away from getting rid of Jason Zucker for Michael Frolik plus a draft pick. And boy, let me tell you, Calgary sure shit could have used a Jason Zucker in their lineup over Michael Frolik.
Yeah.
So that is what it is. But I feel like he's going to go back to the well and try to trade him again. And I know
if
everybody
you're the Flames,
wants.
why don't you just come back with the same deal again? I mean, I know it's not any better this time around, but Paul Fenton he signed Zucker to an extension.
Yeah.
And then look to deal him 4 months later. Like, how do you not try to take advantage of that level of crazy?
Yeah, and I feel like there will be a little bit more of an open market for Zucker maybe in the offseason with teams having a little more cap flexibility.
Sure.
So you might be able to get a little bit more in return, but I still feel like you're selling low ultimately. But again, it just feels like more changes are going to come, especially, and Michael Russo kind of threw this out, that the Wild kind of have a log jam at wing with just of people coming back.
Sure.
And you want to put guys like Donato and Fiala on their right side, which I believe is left. So
right,
you want to give them their chance, and I don't know. It doesn't add up well for Mr. Zucker, so that's why I've pegged his odds at 3-2.
No, that's entirely fair. I think that, I realize I'm probably maybe a little bit on the high side of that.
Next one I have is Jared Spurgeon getting a extension from the Minnesota Wild.
I have that at 2-1. I think that, that might even be a 3-2 or maybe even worse than that. I really think that since it got put out in the news, that's usually something where it's like, okay, this is going to happen, because obviously both sides want to do it. If one side didn't want to do it, if they weren't starting talks or they had no confidence in getting something done, I don't think they put that out there. NHL teams, especially, it seems like Paul Fenton, very conscious of what's being put out in the media, obviously. So I think that gets done. I think that's damn near a lock.
Yeah. I still think it's high, but I'm going to go with 3-1.
Sure.
I think there's a little wiggle room in there, because I think Jared Spurgeon's probably your most tradable asset outside of Matt Dumba.
True.
But trading him would create a little bit of a crater on the right side of your defense. So
massive.
I still think it's more valuable to the Wild to bring back Jared Spurgeon, unless the philosophy of the front office this offseason is rebuild, not just, quickly try to make a couple trades and get back in the playoffs next year. But if your philosophy is going to be a full-on rebuild, then
he's definitely gone.
Yeah, then trading Jared Spurgeon makes more sense.
No, I would agree.
Yeah, I got him pegged at a 3-1. So next on the odds list by us unofficial odds makers is Devin Dubnyk being traded.
Yeah, this I probably have even too low. I've got it at 10-1. And I think that even that is, it's probably even less likely than that. But I could be wrong, and so that's why I kind of hedged a little bit and put it 10-1. So I just don't see it happening. I don't think it's very likely. It's possible just because the rest of his contract is pretty easily swallowed.
Friendly.
Yeah, pretty easy for another team to take on. But again, it's the exact same situation as Spurgeon. Are you looking to compete, or are you looking to rebuild? Because if you're looking to compete, despite having an awful, abysmal season this year, Devin Dubnyk probably is the best goalie that you have available to you to compete, unless you think you can sign Sergei Bobrovsky, who is kind of inconsistent as well. So it's really
Florida.
Well, that too. But that's why I had it at 10-1. I don't think it's very likely.
There is a somewhat okay market for goaltenders. So it does create a little bit of flexibility to trade Devin Dubnyk. However, I don't believe the Wild are going to trade Devin Dubnyk, and I think this is another sell low moment. And as I'm writing about on Monday for Zone Coverage, our Knights just scored. Hashtag our Knights. Also, who's running their Twitter account today? It's Eric Halla. I'm
They
sure
just
of
scored
it.
on our ice, and everybody's going wild.
So, as I was saying, as I'm writing about on Monday, so if you're listening to this, you can read that. Devin Dubnyk's season was off the rails bad from mid-November on, basically through the trade deadline. So a considerable chunk of the season was not good. So you're kind of in a sell low, but he does have a very team-friendly deal, as you said. He is 32, so you wonder how many good years are kind of left in the tank. But
Ancient.
ultimately, I feel like the Wild don't have anyone that can replace him.
Right.
And I don't know if they're going to be good enough players to land a big goaltending free agent if they do move on. So
Right.
I've got him pegged at 50 to 1 odds
Oh, wow.
to get traded.
Okay.
That's-
And that's entirely fair. And the only reason I have him as low as 10 to 1 is because that's still pretty good odds. I mean, you bet $10, you'd win 100. So that's not bad. That's still kind of a long shot. But you can't underestimate Crazy Pills Paul, because Crazy Pills Paul will do whatever he wants to do. So Dubnyk is
He's a firm believer in Al Stalock.
well, obviously he is. That's the most effed up part of the whole situation. Clearly, Crazy Pills Paul loves him some Al Stalock.
Next one is Jonas Brodin gets traded. That one, I feel like there's decent chance. I feel like if you want to trade a defenseman, but you don't want to kind of make a crater on the right side of your defense,
Right.
you can dip into the left side and get rid of Brodin. And so I'm going to put that at 6 to 1 odds.
Yeah, I had it at 7 to 1, so I'm right there with you. I think if you pick a top 4 defenseman to trade, you can't trade Suter, and you really, emphasis on really, shouldn't trade Spurgeon or Dumba. So that leaves you with Jonas Brodin, and Jonas Brodin's contract is pretty easily swallowable. He's got, I think, a year left on his deal. So it's just it really becomes year or two left on his deal. So it really becomes a very easy thing to get rid of him. You've got a guy like Nick Sear that you can bump up, or your left-handed defensemen are pretty plentiful, and so you can go out and get one. And hopefully, if they do deal with Jonas Brodin, that doesn't mean more minutes for Anthony Potato, but we'll get to that.
Now, you mentioned left-handed defensemen are plentiful.
More so than right-handed, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's why I say you don't want to cripple yourself on the right side. You can always replace.
Right, and I think Brad
Left-hand
Hunt
defense.
showed enough to. I mean, I don't know that he needs to be a top 4 guy, but I think with Suter, Sealer, and Hunt on the left side, not as good as having Rodin, obviously, but you could do worse. Is what I'm saying. You could do worse.
Top names kind of for left-handed defensemen on the free agent market. You have Alex Edler, Mark Mathot, Nick Cronwall,
Oof.
Jake Gardner of the Maple Leafs, Braden Coburn, and then you get Delzato, Hainsey, Gunnarsson, and so on. Kind of going on down the line. But, my God, we've reached the end of the Brooks Orpik contract in Washington. I can't believe this.
Well, no, he signed a 1-year deal with them. Colorado bought him out.
Oh, that's right.
He got traded to Colorado,
They bought him out.
and then re-signed with Washington.
What an
That's why.
absolutely.
I mean, hey, Colorado was willing to take that money on, and they got paid handsomely to do it. They got Grubauer, who's carrying them through the playoffs right now. So I don't think they were that upset about it.
Yeah. So, no, those are kind of some names out there who could be free agents on the left side of the defense. So A big UFA signing. What do you got on the odds of the Wild landing a big fish free agent?
I have it at 100 to 1.
Wow.
I am just, I know that a lot of these moves this year were made for hashtag saving cap space. The running joke that Derek Peterson has of saving cap space being an elite winger that the Wild are acquiring this year, but I don't see it. They're not going to land a guy like Duhaime, a guy like Panarin, a guy like Bobrovsky, Carlson. We talked about Erik Karlsson, somehow a UFA that nobody talks about for this summer. I just don't see it. They don't have the cap space, and even if they do make the cap space through trading a Jonas Brodin, a Jared Spurgeon, a Jason Zucker, I just don't know what your selling point is then to that player. If you're going to get rid of that much money to bring in a big guy, what's your selling point to that guy, aside from just giving him gobs of money? Aside from giving a player who doesn't deserve it a $10 million a year deal. Right? Like, that's what you would have to do. Hey, Matt Duchene, come play here. I know we don't have much going for us, and we're kind of in the middle of a janky rebuild, but here's $10 million for 5 years.
What is your definition of, like, big UFA? Like,
I would say,
like, because obviously there are big names like Panarin, Duchene, Erik Karlsson, who nobody's talking about.
Right.
Bobrovsky and whatnot. But, like,
I think that's...
Do you throw, like, Brock Nelson, Anders Lee? Do you throw those guys kind of in the types of big UFA signings?
The tier ends for me right around there. I don't know that Anders Lee, I guess you would, is maybe a big signing. And he, is as likely as anybody to land here just because he's from here. But I don't see it either way. Like, I just don't see it unless you just get the perfect storm of a guy who just wants to come home, and unless you get an Eric Stahl type deal where it's just like, you know what, I like it here, I want to sign here, not really worried about the money. We're not really worried about the winning situation because they can't offer a lot of money and they don't have a great winning situation. So
I think it's a little more closer to reality than you do.
Okay.
So
that's fair. That's totally fair.
I think with the roster retooling that we might see happening this offseason, like, I put the odds at 9-1 that a big UFA signs here.
Wow. That's probably realistic.
It's generous maybe, but
we're only off by 91, Giles.
You've got all this cap space now, and if you move on from some players, what are you going to use it for? Like, you're just going to stock up in the hopes that one of the players on the roster, like, gets great, and then you have to pay him gobs of money? Like, no. Like, this is an owner that will spend to the cap.
Sure.
Like, it's going to happen. They will sign some kind of big UFA, even if it's kind of towards the end of the big tier, kind of we talked about. But
yeah,
I think the money is there for some kind of reason, and they want to take a run at somebody of note.
I think if you make tiers of free agents, like let's say the Panarin, Karlsson, Duchene, Bobrovsky, that's tier 1.
Tier 1.
I think they probably do sign somebody from tier 2. You know what I mean? Like maybe the Brock Nelson, Anders Lee. You can make an argument for Anders Lee to be in tier 1, I think. But either way, it's kind of a middle ground. But I think that they also have a lot of money to spend too, because look at the amount of RFAs on this team. You've got Donato, you've got Fiala. And those guys are going to make a little bit of money. Yeah. And so you've got that. You've got to re-sign Jared Spurgeon. I don't know. It just seems to me like unless they cleared a bunch of cap space, which we don't necessarily want to see them do because that doesn't necessarily mean it's a positive move for them either. It's not like they have a whole lot of dead cap weight right now. Yeah, Parisi and Suter are making a lot of money. You can't get rid of them. Don't bother even think about it. Kova's making a decent amount of money. Maybe if you get lucky, you can long-term IR him. But the plan is for him to play next year, so don't count on it.
Right. So I think the main point everyone wants to know this offseason is how are the Wild going to dump Victor Rask? And so we will now set the odds on if the Wild can dump Victor Rask. I'll let you kick this one off.
I'm extremely pessimistic, and I'm aware of that. Because I think that, seeing as how he is a Paul Fenton acquisition, I don't think Fenton's going to be really quick to pull the plug on it, which he would have to do. I mean, he would have to attach a pretty kingly sum to Victor Rask for a team to take. I mean, we're talking like a second-round pick or a really good prospect, or, you know what I mean? Like something like that. So I put it at 50-1 because I just don't see it happening. I think Victor Rask spends one more season in Minnesota and then he's bought out next summer. I think you can almost set your watch to that.
Wait, would you say 15-1?
50-0.
Okay.
I am not a believer in Victor Rask getting dumped this summer. I think he's bought out next summer, and I would almost bet my 401k on that.
I mean, I was going to say something probably a little closer to the 15-1. But,
that's fine, though.
I mean,
those are long odds still.
Look, I'm not just saying Ottawa's out there because Ottawa's a disaster. Like, Ottawa has genuine cap space.
Oh, tons.
Like, look at it, folks.
Tons.
If you can somehow jettison him, like, you got to do it. Like, don't.
But I think you're going to have to give up value to do it, so I almost don't like it just in.
Right.
Like, he's making $4 million. That's not a good contract. But you could do worse. And I think that you're going to have to attach so much value to him in order to get rid of him. Like, you're going to have to attach like I said, a high pick to him to get rid of him. And I don't like that situation.
No. So I'll put it at 20-1. I think it's doable, but it's not. I kind of inch more towards you, or that they probably won't, but I think the option's there, so it's a little more feasible to do it now.
It's possible, yeah.
But yeah, so 20-1 has my odds, so
sure.
A lot of favorable odds there somewhere.
Somebody making a lot of money off of this sports book we're running here.
Yeah, we shouldn't open a sports book.
Right?
Ryan Donato, does he get a long-term deal from the Minnesota Wild?
I guess, it really depends on your definition of a long-term deal, but I think, 4 years would be a long-term deal, 3 or 4 years? Or 5, obviously, would be even longer, but...
I mean, I'd say long-term is 5 or over.
Oh, really? Okay. In that case, I'm, a little more pessimistic on it. If I were to put a long deal at, like, a good money 4-year deal, I got him at 3-1. I've got pretty decent odds on that. I think that it just makes enough sense. He's shown enough in the time that he's been with the Wild that I think that they should be comfortable in signing him to an extension that's worthwhile. I think that he's good enough and young enough to where that's a good move for them. Getting like almost a Charlie Coyle-like contract where they've got him, they got him before he was too expensive kind of thing. Not that Coyle ever was going to be expensive, but
right.
He was on a very favorable contract because he signed a long contract so early in his career.
Yeah, I agree. 3-1 is pretty much what I was thinking. Is I think out of the trades you made this year and the players you got back, if you are going to try and lock somebody in long term, it's going to be Ryan Donato, who I really felt he has, and kind of going forward, will play with a chip on his shoulder because he was playing with his hometown team, the Boston Bruins, and they buried him in the AHL, and then they essentially just kind of moved him for Cole.
2 years of Charlie Coyle.
Yeah, you're trading a hometown guy for a hometown guy.
Sure.
But you're traded away from your hometown team after just a year essentially of playing for them. Like, that's a huge motivational thing. So having a guy with a chip on his shoulder is always something you want to have in your back pocket as a general manager. So I think locking in Ryan Donato long term is something you will very, very likely see happen this off season. So I will go 3-1 as well. Now, do you give Kevin Fiala a long-term deal?
No, I had this a little higher. I had this at a 10-1, and I think that I wrote about this in my last mailbag. I think that he's primed for a bridge deal. I think that it just works out better for him and for the team that it's a bridge deal, that he only signs for 2 or 3 years, and that he makes sure that, if he's as good as they think he can be, which he's obviously very talented,
right,
but he has some holes in his game, it just makes more sense for him and the team to kind of wait it out and see what happens.
I got 12-1.
Yeah, same range.
I was kind of thinking along the same lines as you, but we saw flashes of brilliance, but we did not see a lot of great things from Kevin Fiala when he was traded. So I say 12-1. I think more 2-3 year deal is that future. So
and we saw it work out extremely well for guys like Zucker and Dumba.
Right. Bridge deals never hurt unless you are the Montreal Canadiens and PK Subban. Joel Eriksson, do you go ahead and give him a long deal, or are you looking at a bridge deal? I guess more the question is, the odds are on Joel Eriksson getting a long-term deal.
I put those odds worse than Fiala, but not as good as Donato. Or however you want to phrase that. I have him at 8-1. I think that it's more likely he gets a long deal than Fiala. I think maybe significantly more likely. But I don't think that he is a guy like Donato where it's like, lock him up. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm a little bit low on that. Maybe I should be more in the 5-1 range on him. Because I feel like he did have a pretty good second half. But, I'd say the last month of the season he was hurt and he didn't really produce much. So it's really tough to make an argument for giving him a long deal based on what he had 2 months of really productive play. And then he has been playing good otherwise. I'm an Eriksson fan, but I just think the production wasn't there enough to warrant him getting a long-term deal. I think he gets a bridge as well. But it's entirely possible he gets a long-term deal, and depending on what the number is, we might not hate it.
I'm a little less favorable on that. I've got him at 15-1.
Oh, okay.
I think Kevin Fiala has better odds, and that's because he's a Paul Fenton guy.
That's a very good point.
Not a Paul Fenton guy.
That's a very good point.
And I think more likely a bridge deal is in store for Eriksson, who did look very good when Mikko Koivu went out of the lineup, but you have Eric Stahl and Koivu now, at least for next year, so why would you give a long-term deal to a guy to be your third-line center?
Sure.
Because that doesn't make
unless it's for low money,
Yeah, like you could have signed somebody to a 3-year deal at a $275 million annual value to be your third-line center. What's the damn harm in that?
That sounds like a fair deal to me.
That sounds
like a deal that any NHL team should sign.
A good player that you should not give away in the expansion draft.
No, I mean you should definitely hang on to players like that.
Anyway, I just think there's a little bit more to prove for Eriksson, and also, like as I've alluded to previously, Paul Fenton has to kind of figure out what he wants to do at center. So
sure.
I feel like now you're going to give Eriksson a full season, and it's kind of got to be a show up or shut up kind of a season for Eriksson. So that's why I pegged him at a little bit bigger odds of 15-1.
Okay.
Nico Sturm getting re-signed. I feel like that's kind of a slam dunk, but what do you have for the odds on that?
Really, I don't, and I don't know why. I had a weird feeling on this. I had Sturm at 5-1, which isn't crazy high, but I'm kind of worried that it might not happen because he took a 1-year deal, and that is like a pretty gigantic red flag right off the bat, I think, to where he was looking for an opportunity and the Wild had one, and he wanted to play in the NHL. That was part of the deal, right? Like, so he took a 1-year deal, essentially a 10-game deal, to play with the Wild, and I think he just wanted to get in the NHL. And I think he just kind of wanted to get his feet in the NHL, and the Wild obviously very much had an opening with Mikko Koivu out. I don't think it's a slam dunk that he resigns here. I'd like him to be. I think, kind of ties into that whole conversation of your center depth, and I think he's the incredible contingency plan for Mikko Koivu not coming back healthy. But I don't know. I'm not thinking it's a slam dunk.
I think it's almost even.
Really? Okay.
Like,
maybe you're right.
Well,
maybe I'm just way off on this.
It's a low cost thing, and it kind of prevents you from spending money on UFA players.
Sure.
To be on your fourth line. So I'm gonna put him at 7-5.
Okay.
To re-sign with the Wild.
Yeah.
So
you're not losing any money there.
No. Pontus Aberg, does he re-sign? What are your odds? And I'll start with this. I'm going to put him at 69-1.
Nice. So I think I had him a lot higher. A lot higher, actually. I had him at 5-1, just because for a couple of reasons. He's an RFA, and I think that he's going to be very cheap. And as you mentioned previously, and this will come into play later, unfortunately, he's a Fenton guy. He's a former Fenton draft pick. I think that him being a former Fenton draft pick, a guy Fenton traded for this season, and an RFA, all those things kind of add together into him re-signing here. But I will say with the caveat that he might spend a lot of time in Iowa. That's entirely possible for him. That's Jamie approves of a lot of time in Iowa. She's a fan.
Yeah.
But I think he does re-sign here, and maybe I want him to go even higher than 5-1.
Got it.
Tremendous. You're that low on him, huh? Just because everyone hates him? We've got fans throwing things right now in their cars.
Yeah, I'm not saying you should bring him back, but it's just, what did you see that warrants him to come back? He's a Fenton guy, sure, but even Paul Fenton has to be going, this guy bleeping sucks.
Crazy Pills Paul doesn't care what you think, Giles. Crazy Pills Paul does what he wants.
I don't know. It's a long shot for me, so everybody just put $1 on my odds and you'll get a nice payout.
I see what you did there.
Okay, Eric Fear, does he resign with the Minnesota Wild?
I don't think that he does. I put him at 10-1. I think that he's probably just as likely to. I mean, this fourth line has really turned into a rotating door for the Wild the last couple of seasons. You got your Matt Cullens, you got your Eric Hollis, you got your God, I can't even think of some of the terrible players that have played center in the fourth line. I think he could resign, and I wouldn't be against it, quite frankly, for the fourth line. But I just think that they maybe move on to someone else. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 13-1.
Sure.
I just, like you said, it's been a rotating door. I think, he did do decent, but I think there's more cheaper options available to you. So I think that doesn't necessarily mean he is going to come back. So I think he'll get another NHL job somewhere else.
Oh, sure.
But not with the Minnesota Wild.
Yep, I would agree.
Brad Hunt, does he resign with the Minnesota Wild?
I think he does. I think that this could be just the Russo bias in me, but I think that he comes back. I think that he showed enough this year, and I know you and I both were big fans of what he brought to this team, at least on the power play at the very least, yes. Right? If he's a power play specialist, I think he's even worth it just to keep on for that, and it didn't seem like he showed like he was completely god-awful defensively, so maybe there's enough there to bring back. I don't know. I had him at 2-1. I think that it's incredibly likely that he resigns. I don't think he's going to cost a lot.
No.
And I think that he maybe ends up in the James Shepard Memorial Press Box a fair amount next season. But I still think they resign him.
I got him at 4-1. I think it's a lot more likely that he comes back. He still could not, but I
sure.
think you had to have liked what you've seen at the very least. You just bring him back as a seventh defenseman, a guy you can just plug in when you need kind of a spark to your power play.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
assuming Ryan Suter gets the hell off the ice. But and then last one that we have kind of in the the serious category
Sure.
is does Anthony Bitetto resign with the Minnesota Wild?
This one I would love to put it 100 to 1. I would love to put Anthony Bitetto resigning at 1,000 to 1. But I have him at 10 to 1. For the same reasons that I have a lot of the guys coming back. He's a Fenton guy, and I think it's entirely possible that Paul Fenton brings him back as a depth piece. And while I don't agree with it, I just see that there's a lot of likelihood that it happens.
I have a lot lower odds. 2 to 1.
Oh, yeah, you think it's that? Yeah.
He calls him by Tony, not Anthony. It is Tony Bitetto.
They're on a shortened name basis.
Yeah, they're, it's probably a, hey, Tony, how is it going? Hey, P, not doing too bad myself.
I was just saying, you think he calls him Pa? Or Papa? Papa Fenton?
And there's no value in bringing him back. I'm sorry, but there's no value.
Yeah.
But he's coming back.
Yeah,
so 2 to 1 odds.
Yeah, I hate to agree, but I do.
All right, so we have some other joke topics like...
These are serious things, Giles.
Like Ben comes crawling back to writing, or zone coverage getting credentialed for Minnesota Wild hockey games, or, us crying at Joe Mauer's number retirement.
Are you just reeling through these right now, or are we going to actually do odds on them?
Well, okay. Okay, so go back to the crawl back to writing. What do you got for odds?
For myself coming crawling back to writing, I have it 5 to 1. Which is not crazy high, and I addressed this when I, let's call it quote-unquote retired, which I haven't actually haven't written my last article yet, but it's entirely possible I come back to writing in some capacity, maybe. We'll see. Kids are hard.
I got it at 9 to 1.
Oh, okay.
I think, with your
Did Roz tell you to
pending fatherhood. No, Roz did not get to me.
Did she discourage it at all?
I think you're going to find some other things to occupy your time.
Sure.
Especially in the beginning when, the child is sleeping, you will more than likely just do the same and go the hell
That's
to sleep.
very true,
So,
yeah. I do want to get back into model cars again, that's true.
So I got you at 9 to 1, and I
Okay.
think after that, you get past the sleeping phase, then you're just going to find some things to do with your child or
that's fair.
children, depending on your future.
Yep.
But,
sure.
9 to 1 is my official odds.
Okay.
Then we have Giles and the goalie ends.
This came out of this hit our listeners out of nowhere, didn't it?
I feel like we are not allowed to set the odds on this because we have insider information.
We do actually, yeah, that's true. Yeah, so but it also depends on what you consider Giles and the goalie ending, like how you see that,
right?
How you define that, I guess.
So I guess we just define that as the Giles and the Goalie podcast just ceases to exist, and we don't podcast anymore.
Okay. What was that snipping? That was violent.
She went snip, snip.
Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. She just gave our podcast a vasectomy on air. Jesus Christ. That was... This just took a turn, man. My God.
Snip, snap, snip, snap.
What a great scene.
No, so...
Yeah, so maybe we should skip that one.
Yeah.
Skip over that one.
Somebody else set those odds.
Yeah.
Then we had zone coverage, credentialing zone coverage, which
the Wild
essentially is
zone
me at
yeah,
this
well,
point.
I wrote you. I wrote the Wild credential Giles. Because I think that them credentialing Heather would be a great move on their part. and they really should do that, and they should have done that a long time ago. Credentialing her through zone coverage, that is. She's already credentialed with another entity, and that's great. But yeah, credentialing you, I think, is... I put it at 100 to 1. I don't know what you think.
Generous.
It's a good bet. I'll put $1 on that.
150 to 1.
Okay.
We cry at Joe Mauer's number retirement.
Yeah, so we're just talking about this. I already have tickets for that game. Giles is allegedly buying tickets for that game.
Yeah, I keep forgetting.
Yeah, Giles was nice enough to treat myself and Roz to Joe Mauer's final game last season, and Giles and I both cried. So I think that at his retirement ceremony...
Yeah, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. I put it at 1 to 2 odds. I probably should have gone like 1 to 10, because this, I mean, you're just not going to make any money on this bet at all. It's virtually as much of a lock as you can get.
No, I put it as, I guess I shouldn't say even, but I'm going to go with like the American Pharaoh line, like I ran with before, right. Like at 1 to 5.
Yeah, it's bad odds. Don't
bet on it.
Because it's going to happen. You're not going to make any money on that.
Bruce is fired in August.
This one I really enjoyed because it's kind of akin to Patrick Waugh resigning. I think we can include Bruce resigning in this because it's essentially the same thing, right? I think that there's a non-zero chance that Bruce Boudreau is not the NHL or not the Minnesota Wild coach next season. I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think that I'm way off on that, or? And because Fenton said, "Oh, he's my coach for next year," after like everyone basically knew that he didn't want him to bring him back next year.
It was his non-committal answer, like he talked about with analytics.
Yeah, so exactly.
I say it's like 20 to 1.
I have it at 10 to 1. I don't doubt Crazy Paul's Paul.
It could happen. I don't know. Jared Bednar turned out to be a good coach, so you never know.
Well, I mean, that doesn't... Yeah, that's fair.
Then the last one we have is Kirill Kaprizov signs with the Minnesota Wild this summer. After winning the Gagarin Cup. I actually think I noted that. I did, and I missed that in my news part of it, but I can talk about it now.
Sure, let's do it.
CSKA Moscow wins the Gagarin Cup, a clean sweep in the KHL final. Kirill Kaprizov, huge cog in the machine.
Yep, 13 points in 19 games.
Yep. And
so pretty solid playoff run for the kid.
So, first of all, let's address the odds part of this before we hit the other part. But what are you going to set as the odds for him signing?
I have this at 1,000 to 1. I have this somewhere around, what is it? Was it Leicester City?
Leicester City.
Leicester City, yeah. I have it somewhere around there.
My former roommate could write a small novel on how long it took him to correct me on how to correctly say Leicester City.
It's just Leicester, huh?
Yeah, Leicester.
You know, it's spelled like Leicester?
I think I kept saying it like Leicester or Leicester or something. I'd have to ask him.
It's like pronouncing Worcester.
Yeah. Worcestershire.
Yeah, Worcestershire.
But no, actually, Leicester City had 5,000 to 1 odds to win the Premier League that season.
Oh, I'll put
which I set them as that 5,000 to 1.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I was too low on 1,000 to 1.
Right, which odds makers will never ever do again because that
sets you up for disaster.
Yeah, that lost big time.
Yeah,
it really can't happen though in the Premier League. It can't. It's so unheard of that happened. That is a once in a truly a lifetime thing.
Sure.
So you can go back to that again, setting Cardiff City, some other garbage relegation team as that. You're fine. But no, Kirill Kaprizov signing, I have it at 5,000 to 1. And I don't know where this BS rumor is coming from that apparently Russian teams will let players out of their contracts if they win the cup, like CSKA apparently. So if somebody can point me in the direction of where this rumor came from, you'd be helping me out because I've not heard a thing of it. And as far as I know, Kirill Kaprizov is playing another year in Russia as elite prospects has already stapled to their website.
Yeah, as I mentioned on Twitter just recently with our friend Joe Booley, I think that somebody watched Red Army and got a little too excited because that was obviously kind of a pivotal plot point in that movie, documentary rather, about Slava Fetisov saying that, hey, if you win a gold medal, and I believe it was 1988, we'll let you go to America, because the Jersey Devils had already drafted him at that point. And, so that was a real thing back then, but it's not an actual thing that happens anymore. Like, these are actual sports contracts, so this just doesn't happen.
Okay, we're back.
Yeah,
we have to stop.
Nice meeting with our
Adam.
Adam, a lovely fan of ours, listens all the time, subjects his poor wife to it, unfortunately for her.
No, that was Jamie put it right on the head when she said, I was worried you'd have like PTSD from being interrupted from the podcast.
Well, yeah, I don't
be the same.
If we were giving a cease and desist here, I think our waiter who served us multiple drinks at this point, or Tom Reed himself, would probably walk into a table.
At this point, yeah, I think I have a word with the owner on my bank statements.
Yeah, no kidding.
But anyway, somebody put me in the direction of where these rumors of players being let out of their contracts coming from, because I haven't seen it. And you know what? I haven't exactly been digging around for this kind of thing. Like, since the Wild have ended, I have kind of, I'm not going to say like totally like shut myself off, but like in the last week, like I kind of just took a little break before I kind of get back into the swing of things here this next week. So it's kind of good to just have a week where you just kind of flush everything out of your mind. So if there is something of credit out there, point me in that direction. But otherwise, I haven't seen anything from the people who would know. So
I was going to say, I don't really tool around a whole lot of Russian websites or anything like that, because I don't want to end up on the Mueller report. But was this in the Mueller report, maybe? I mean, it's entirely possible, right?
Wow, that did come out. Was that in the Mueller report?
It probably might have been. I mean, there is a non-zero chance.
Kirill Kaprizov was in the Mueller report.
That makes it, I mean, it all adds up, right? It was in one of those pages that was completely blacked out. That's what it was.
The redacted part.
Yeah, it was in the redacted parts. It was like, no, you can't actually read this. This is super important hockey shit that you wouldn't understand. So we're just going to redact all of this here.
I've also just tried so hard to not do anything with the report
me
this
too.
week.
Oh my
That's
God.
the reason why I just kind of shut myself off.
Yeah, you just watch playoff hockey and just try to pretend nothing political is going on. Always end up with a bunch of card jokes.
Between that and what's her face from Washington last week? What is her name?
So, Jamie, do you play Go Fish? Do you play Blackjack?
Yeah, what kind of cards do you nurses play while you're on shift?
Is it Texas Hold'em strictly?
I play Blackjack, but clearly it didn't help me in Vegas, like Giles mentioned on Twitter.
That's fair. Fair. Yeah. It's a tough game.
Ryan Walsh.
Yeah, the house always wins. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a house.
Hey, when I played video blackjack with Carol, I made out like no one's business. Yeah, I was cleaning up.
Ass kicked on that.
And at one of the places, the bartender made me like double up on my bets just so I get the free beverage, and then I did even better. So the joke's on him, sucker.
That's a nice bartender. Good on him.
Yeah, what does he care?
Yeah,
anyway,
true, very true.
That was our betting odds for the year. Ending with the Mueller report. And so now, briefly, we can touch on the NHL playoffs.
Oh, yeah, that happened.
Going on right now. This last week, we saw really the unheralded things happen where the Tampa Bay Lightning were ousted in 4 games by the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Calgary Flames saw their season end in 5 to the Colorado Avalanche.
Yep.
The Penguins were swept on the same night as Columbus by the New York Islanders. And we've got everyone else still going on as of right now. We're in the third period.
Yeah, as of this minute, yes.
Of Vegas and San Jose, which is in Game 6. But stop me if I'm wrong, but I threw this out on Twitter the other day. Like, I feel like there have been less overtimes in the first round. And when I went back and looked at last year, I think it's now like one more than the first round of last year. But I feel like in years of old, like you'd see so many overtimes in the first round right away.
It maybe it's just because none of them have gone particularly long. That might be part of it, because there has been a couple overtime games, but none of them have really been super long overtimes. I don't think we've gotten to a double overtime yet, have we? So
no.
that might play into that feeling a little bit. But otherwise, I mean, with or without overtimes, this first round has been completely bonkers. 2 number 1 seeds losing in 4 and 5 games, to the point where the NHL literally is doing a redo on their bracket challenge, is pretty unheard of stuff. So it's been crazy. It's been a lot of fun to watch. Again, not having a vested interest in the first round for once. But yeah, a lot of fun this season. I've really enjoyed it. Hopefully our beloved Vegas Knights can finish off their series in the next roughly half hour here, and we can celebrate long and hard.
Yeah. Washington is a game away from going on, and I think I was telling her this earlier, but if Washington can get by Carolina, I really like Washington's odds of at least getting back to the final. I think the East now is wide open. Yeah. Pittsburgh is gone. The Lightning are gone, and whoever wins Bruins Leafs Bruins is
facing Columbus,
right?
Who may or may not have some magic.
I think Columbus can go on to the next round, if I'm being honest, and so I think really the door is open for even the winner of the Washington-Carolina series, because I think whoever wins that, they can have a good run with the Islanders.
I think anybody in the second round could legitimately win. You know what I mean? And it's kind of funny because everyone picked the Lightning to win. This was one of those seasons where it felt like it was almost predetermined. And now here we are, 2 weeks into it, not even, and this is the most wide open NHL playoffs we've seen in how long? Last year it kind of seemed like the Caps were the team of destiny. It was still tough for them to get there, but it kind of seemed like they were on that track, and Vegas was on an unbelievable run as well. And maybe we do see that out of teams like Columbus or, whoever this year.
No, and I think that makes up for a very exciting round 2.
Yes.
And 3 and 4, where you have teams that
there's no
going to be fun. Yeah, just you're not seeing Pittsburgh, you're not seeing Tampa Bay, you're not seeing Chicago's not in the playoffs this year. The Kings are not in the playoffs anymore. Right. All the old guard from early in the decade have really kind of fallen off, and now we're kind of getting some fresh blood essentially, which is exciting for me at least.
Sure, and even the recent good teams like the Capitals, they're not any lock to move on. They're only locked to win this series or their second round series.
Right.
Really good team, historically in the last couple of seasons, Nashville, they might not make it to the first round. And if they do, I don't think they scare anybody. Pekka Rinne has looked incredibly below average.
They have to win the next 2. And as it stands right now, speaking of the West, I picked the Blues and the Stars to win their series at the beginning of the playoffs. Yeah. And I'm a win away from that being right to make up for my otherwise trash bracket. So
you don't even. My bracket is so trash, and sounds like a Rodney Dangerfield joke, as it is. If Vegas wins tonight, they're the only thing keeping me from running the table. Completely getting every single solitary series wrong. If Vegas somehow manages to lose their series,
which you never know.
Right.
All right. That can wrap it up for us. We've hit our limit. So thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you to Adam for stopping by.
Yeah, that was great.
That was cool.
What a stroke of luck.
Yeah. You can find Ben and I on Twitter at Ben Remington, at Giles Farrell Podcast, Twitter at GATG Wild Podcast. You can find the written works at zonecoverage.com/wild and ZoneCoverageMN on Twitter. This Otherwise Fine podcast is available via iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Spotify, whatever you take in podcasts on. It's there. So that will again wrap it up for us this week, and we will chat with you again next week. Later.
That's not resiliency. You're making it sound like we're good. That's all. I'm done.